All right. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm awake now. Welcome to our 246 and a half Zoom meeting. We're glad some of you were able to show up today. I'm sure everybody knows everybody here by now. David is noticeable by his absence today as he is out sticking up signs to run for council in Colwood. So we'll give him an excuse this time. I think this first part of the program, we're just going to have general chat, maybe about what we've been doing all summer, anything related to EVs, travel whatsoever. And then Julian's going to speak the second part. Is that correct?
Yeah, we'll kind of do a bit of a conversation of, I've got some topics we want to run through.
Yeah, so I don't know if there's anything specific, Glenn, you wanted to bring up this part of the program, or Jim? Any announcements that we need to
go ahead, Jim.
Put forward?
The only things I've really got at the moment are we have three upcoming events that we'll need volunteers for. Next Saturday from about 9 to noon, City of Victoria has asked us for half a dozen different model cars so that they can imply that their new charger system can fit for anybody driving an EV, even though we know there's little glitches with that. So if we have is Glenn, you're there with your Model Y, I believe?
Yeah.
Okay. So if anybody else with a different kind of car, not another Tesla because we've got one, and we have a variety of vehicles now, we'd love to have you just respond to the newsletter or let us know here, and we'll add you to the list of people who want to be there. We may have, and I'm pretty sure we will have, an F-150 Lightning. We finally found somebody who has one. He's just checking to see if he's working Saturday or not, and we'll go from there.
So there's actually one in town?
Yeah. It was referred to us a week ago by somebody who's a member and has been trying to get this guy to join the club for a week or so. So I called him, and he runs a paving company. So he's just not sure, because a lot of that kind of thing, if it's private, gets done on weekends. So if he's available Saturday morning, he will be there. If not, not.
You'll probably get volunteer drivers for it. Unfortunately, I'm going to be over in Vancouver. Lynn's taking me over there. She's got grandchildren. There's a knitting event that she's going to.
Okay.
But, the reason I got interrupted earlier, I'm going to share my screen. That's the IKEA truck. And he says they've got a bunch of them. And this, he lives in Port Moody. He didn't say where it's from. Electric delivery. No, he just sent the pictures over. He took the pictures at IKEA somewhere in the Lower Mainland. So the BYD delivery trucks.
Okay.
Bring your dreams. Awesome.
I read Summers that IKEA has ordered like 1,000 of them.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't know there were any in Canada yet. That's great.
Yeah. It's,
what about the guy with the marina out in Sydney who came to the event in Sydney for the thing in Victoria? That would show that there's some larger vehicles also might use these stations. So
yeah, we shot video with him, and I'm just compiling it at the moment. And he's also getting a second E-Transit, and they've got a Rivian on order as well for the yacht club.
wow.
Now it's interesting. I look, do a web search, and I look at IKEA in Vancouver. They talk about Lion electric trucks, and this is all from 2021, but nothing on BYD for 2022. So hey, that's a scoop, Eric. Well done.
Yeah, well, these are pictures on site.
Yeah.
I'm still struggling with the email address. So I got Victoria EVA Socials with an S at,
At gmail.com. It's in the group chat as well.
oh, okay, I can find that.
Yeah, we've got a couple of interviews with interesting commercial users of EVs that we'll roll out here as able. But yeah, it's business. They everything's bottom line. So if they can do what they need to do every day, and they can do it for cheaper, they don't care what that is. Unicorns, sure, we're going to do that. And because if it helps them, save some money, because the best dollar you make is the one you don't spend. They're going to get up and do that, and more businesses are seeing that. There is, there's an enticement from government to get them into it from a tax basis, which is great. But the bottom line is, as more of them come into the market, the total cost of operations goes down dramatically, and that then means they make more and spend less. So yeah, that's the great best part there.
And I think
I have a question.
Sure.
Does anybody know if we have school districts that are using electric school buses?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes. Which ones?
So far, School District 62, and I'm not sure if Victoria has yet.
No.
So School District 62 has a pair of buses, new build, but what they basically did was rip out or not install the internal combustion drivetrain into a bus. So they have 2 of those operating now. And
If anyone's going to a municipal elections town hall or forum or whatever you want to call them, and there happen to be school trustees, could that question perhaps be raised? Is your district planning on having electric school buses?
yeah, totally.
I think most of the ones in BC have applied, but it's a rolling out kind of thing. I know Qualicum has got theirs, and there's one other. Oh God!
Yeah, there were 13 who got in on the money last year.
But there's a third one on the island that's, I can't remember which one it is.
Oh yeah, somewhere up island.
Yep.
Yeah, I think so.
Might have been Nanaimo.
Yep.
Mhm.
But that's a valid question to ask of the entire municipal fleet. Say, as a taxpayer, total cost of operations means that we spend less on our operations for the municipal fleet. Can we get some, agreement that when an EV comes up that meets the needs, the operational needs, can we make sure we get that and not get yet another dirty, toxic, and expensive ICE vehicle?
Yep. Monday's Times Colonist, and it would be Tuesdays because they don't publish on Monday, but by Monday, all candidates have to have a questionnaire about what their platform is into the Times Colonist, and I think it starts getting printed by municipality starting Tuesday. And one of their questions was, what are you doing to improve transit and the infrastructure for electric vehicles? So it's definitely going to be on the mind of all of the candidates. So very much.
It's interesting. I'm part of a couple of environmental groups, and one of the groups has just had a flurry of emails about the fossil fuel sponsorship of the recently finished municipal UBCM, the Union of BC Municipalities.
Yeah.
That the fossil fuel industry, one of them was sponsoring a breakfast, And as well, they were sponsoring another event for all the municipal candidates. And I mean, the profession I come from, that's equivalent to having a big tobacco company sponsoring something in a medical conference. You know, you just don't do that. So I think as well, we need to talk to our municipal candidates about what sponsorship is there, because it's well understood that sponsorship influences people who are attending these conferences.
Otherwise, it wouldn't be there.
Otherwise, they wouldn't be there.
Yeah.
And the UBCM is very expensive to attend. As we looked into a couple of years ago, it was like $2,000, and I went, you know, if it was going to be in fact, there was one going to be here in Victoria, which we were kind of lined up to be able to do, and then COVID came along. But the only reason we could do it was in Victoria.
Has there been any police forces in the region that were ordering electric cars? Have any of them received them yet? And
Yeah,
What they're
OPay has
doing?
some.
okay, are there any reports out on their use and their
Oh, they like them.
operations and savings?
They do like them.
Mhm.
West Shore should be getting their 2 EVs pretty soon, I imagine. They don't have them already.
I think they said early October was when they were getting them.
Yeah.
And Saanich has a couple. Now, they're not patrol vehicles, but they're for their staff. And I don't know what that means exactly, but
Yeah.
so it's gradual, but
Yeah.
it's happening.
Why wouldn't they use them as patrol vehicles unless they have an old Leaf?
But I think it's because there's still we talked to the Oak Bay people about a month ago, and they turned up at the CRG show at Camosun.
Oh, yes. Mhm.
And what they told us is that they're still trying to figure out how to configure. And I think it's the Model Y that they're most interested in, but it might be the X as well. Heather, did they talk to you about which one they were?
Well, I think it comes down to money right now, and that's why they haven't gotten any more, because they have to pave my street before they're allowed to buy any more cars. But other than that, they do like the Teslas because they do know they fit quite well into them. So, but I don't know if they'll be getting Teslas just because of the $sign in front, unfortunately.
Can I tell people about the follow-up conversation? We had the electric police patrol vehicle arrive with a very just a terrific police officer who knew everything. And I think she and her husband actually have.
They have a Model
their
3.
own. Yeah. Anyway, and Heather made it very clear that the mayor doesn't get to spend any money on on new police cars until her street gets fixed. So a little later, she had asked the other officer had asked some of the other guys in the area to drop by and see the show. And these 2 big cops arrived, and I said, "Are you here to look at the electric cars?" And they said, "No, we're looking for the lady who threatened the mayor." But we provided them with donuts in a box that didn't look like it had donuts in it, so they were fine. And moved on.
Yeah, one of the problems is that currently when the people who are in charge of procurement for police forces, when they decide they need to get new vehicles, they pop open 3 books, one from GM, one from Ford, and one from the other guys. Bless you. And one from the other guys who I think this week are called Stellantis. And each of those have a subsection on police vehicles. And in there, you tick off all the boxes of what you want, and that includes lighting and stuff, and it gets made up by the divisions of those 3 companies, and then it gets delivered to you. And all you have to do as a local procurer is find a place to put on your stickers, so it shows up in one stop shopping. which if you're a harassed procurement person in a municipal, staff, easy, the easy button, that's essentially what they're doing. With Tesla products or Hyundai or any of those other people, all that sort of all that information and who's going to integrate the computers, the lights, the sirens, and all that other stuff doesn't exist. So they then have to look for someone else to do that for them, and I know that's can be quite difficult. So the vehicles themselves are a no-brainer. It's the integration of all the other stuff which kind of ties up the procurement process.
Yeah.
So,
and it isn't just where you put everything. It's the fact that they have ongoing equipment from like Panasonic or whatever that has to be integrated with whatever the electrical systems of the car are, and that's slightly different for different models. So we put them together with Tesla, and I guess the RCMP, Glenn, you might know more about this. They've been dealing with Tesla because they bought about, I think, 10 or 12 for the country, and only one of them's coming here. But
yeah, the first one that's going to be on actual patrol service will be here in West Shore.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm surprised that Tesla hasn't got a subdivision doing police cars and that sort of thing, because it's a major market and great advertising for them because they're on the road all the time.
Well, when you look at it from Tesla's point of view, that is such a tiny
Oh, sure it is, but
niche slice of the market. They're trying to ramp up to building 20 million cars a year by 2030. Right now, the biggest car makers make 10 million, or they did back in 2018. Now they're making 6 million.
yeah, and
So-
Ford does have. They've already announced a program for the F-150 for police, and so they've already done that configuration thing because they have those departments.
Yeah, I think they have. I think they have for the Mustang as well.
Yeah.
I think so too. Yeah, I've seen
Yeah.
a Mustang police car somewhere, so picture of one at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are police Teslas in the U.S. and in Eastern Canada, like Yarmouth, no, Bridgewater, Nova Scotia.
Really?
Yeah,
I were just there and I didn't notice it.
They were behind you.
Probably a good thing, Don.
you couldn't hear it coming up behind you.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, any other good questions? Because I might have questions for you guys.
I have a request from Jim Standen to make a couple of remarks.
Yeah, just quickly, I'm Sherry Standen today because she's got a better computer than mine. So that's what you get. That's the name on the screen. We had a celebration photo for our 40% year-over-year growth rate here, which, pretty much shocked us. We sort of gathered people together to go to the golf course, get a picture, get it in the newspaper, that sort of thing. I would say that we're about 450 cars now, which is about 4.5% of our population. So we're really happy. We'll just continue to do what we're doing. It seems to be working. The other thing I'd mention is we have more free level 2 charging stations coming in. They're in flight, but they will be up and running pretty quickly. So we're, continuing to work with creating more infrastructure. And we have somebody who's quite interested in putting in a DCFC charger. So I don't know if that'll work or not, but I've talked to a couple of people about maybe that sort of thing might even make sense on Salt Spring. So anyways, just a quick update on what's going on over here, and glad to always be like this little section of the Victoria Club. Love you guys. You're doing fantastic stuff. So
Thanks, Jim.
Okay, well, I'll kick off with a couple things then. Some of you guys know that one of my gigs here is government engagement. So I kind of, where it's possible, stick my oar in on behalf of the association to give them ideas or maybe point out where they can improve what they're doing, or indeed point out that they're not doing anything at all. So, and that's at both municipal, provincial, and federal levels. So, and so there's different ideas that come up. Some of you who are on social media might have seen this question come up as well. And one of the questions is should the government of BC require that electric vehicle makers help contribute to our intercity direct current fast charging infrastructure? Now, right now, the infrastructure that does exist in this province is just shy of 1,000 DCFCs, of which, quicker ones are about close to 800 of those. And of those, 55% of those were put in by a private company, a car maker. So it seems like the rest of the EV makers out there have stood around with their hands in their pockets for a number of years, while the rest of the work has been tossed off to, well, it's been left to government to fund the charging setup. And that includes, groups like Petro-Canada, who did that through, federal government kicking in money. So the thought here is that if you want to sell electric vehicles in British Columbia, you shouldn't just be able to dump them here and not be able to support the cars you're selling in the ability for them to travel around the province. We all know you don't need a DCFC to do your day-to-day, and indeed 90 to 95% of all your driving. But if you do want to get out, go up to Prince George or Smithers or anything like that, then that does need to be supported by direct charging, direct current fast charging setup. So I throw open the floor and ask for your comment.
We keep hearing stories about Volkswagen building a system. Is it with Canadian Tire? Or?
So the system's called Electrify Canada.
Right.
And it's a 10% echo of the Electrify America, which was a court fine of close to $3 billion on VW for their Dieselgate scandal, which I think everybody knows about. They said their cars weren't polluting, and they were just cheating, using computer software to cheat. And when they finally got caught out, it said, well, you can either stop selling your vehicles in North America, or you can pay this fine. That's how Electrify America came into business, and how Electrify Canada came into business. But that is not a function of how many cars that they sell in any particular jurisdiction. Those are totally disconnected. This is kind of like them paying their sin tax. So, do people think that EV makers should have to contribute, either create their own or contribute to the DCFC infrastructure?
I think that the governments at all levels shouldn't be putting money into electric cars or charging. They should be legislating to make it easier for us to buy, to make it easier for us to install chargers in residences, in burbs.
That's a different topic, Eric. Two different topics.
No, it isn't.
Yeah, it's the
not
same
fair.
topic.
You can do
But
things by
I don't think the
legislation.
government should be installing them. What you're saying is, I'm endorsing what you're saying, is that the car manufacturers should be induced with legislation to do it. Not,
Okay.
not contributing money to the government so that they can put the chargers in.
Do
Well-
we run into the problem then of having multiple adapters that are car specific? So that we've got a Tesla fast charging and we've got a Ford fast charger and we have a somebody else fast charger. And then do we have to have adapters for all of these different things?
Well, that's a different, that's a fallout from it necessarily. This is just about, okay, you want to be able to sell cars in this province, you know, should you or should you not have to contribute? Or create your own. And if you are creating a system, then you know you would, in your own self-interest, you would create the connector to the car that best meets your needs.
Is there a timeline yet on Ford's latest threat to dealers that they have to put a double DCFC system in on their lots before they can sell EV?
No, but that's another topic we're probably going to get into.
Okay. Never mind.
Yeah.
So on here, one of the things that I would, or I think Norman, you had your hand up. The hand's up on your thing there, at least on your screen. Take it down. You got at the bottom there. You got the hand up. There you go.
There you go.
From what I understand, way back when, and correct me if I'm wrong, please, but Tesla offered the other manufacturers to share their system if they would contribute toward paying into it.
Yep.
They all refused, did they not? Am I correct in that, Glenn?
Yeah, and because they were, from their point of view, at that point, we're talking, you know, probably 2015, 2016, 2017, they were just hoping Tesla was going to die.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So they set the example in a sense, in that they realize that if you're going to sell cars, you have to be able to charge them, and there's no way to charge them out there when you're on the road. The other manufacturers, thank you for the information on this Electrify America, Electrify Canada thing. It's very interesting. They're not doing it as part of marketing as much as they're doing it as part of a court settlement. But to me, I tend to agree with what has just been raised here about the legislative route. We tend to do everything through, or we have tended more recently of doing everything by government spending on, you know, subsidize this, subsidize that, as opposed to through legislation, because they squawk and yell about too many regulations. People have bought into that whole thing. So governments regulate less, but they end up spending more through subsidies for everyone and their dog, essentially. And if they legislate it, it doesn't mean the manufacturer has to set up their own independent infrastructure, but they could participate in a common thing like the beer companies did years and years ago, where they had the whole, all bottles that were the same, and they still, in Ontario, the brewers retail still cooperate and participate with the collection of beer bottles. So, I mean, there are ways that industry can put money in to be able to develop an infrastructure without them necessarily doing it independently, each one going their own route. The other factor, as Lynn raised a few minutes ago, was all the diversity of charging systems. And now Quick Charge or Nissan's is on the way out, with them not even supporting it anymore with the new models. So we're basically down to the CCS as the new standard. And from what I gather, Tesla is making that adapters for that if they don't already have them. Or in Europe, they use a CCS instead of the Tesla charger, I understand. So it's going to become easier with having a common charging system to be able to, for the manufacturers to force them, push them into putting money into infrastructure. Right now, I mean, to me, it's always made sense. When oil companies started pumping oil out of the ground, they started building service stations to distribute it. And why our utilities have been so slow to get on the road and BC Hydro, have to give them some credit because they have been dragging their feet a bit, but they are the primary installer of EVs in the province. And it's a push from the province to do that, but it's also a beneficial economic position for them in time, because they'll become the main suppliers of, they already are going to supply the electricity, but now they supply the facility as well. So,
Yeah,
I
good
don't know.
points. Good points, Don. Sherry?
Ha! Sherry. The reason I saw your little quiz and I added undecided to the bottom because I was undecided. I see the traditional ice industry under severe stress right now, and they're, you know, everything is shifting under their feet. Tesla's really giving them a run for their money, and I think they're this severe stress translates to both an opportunity, or we're too busy, we couldn't even think about addressing that sort of thing right now. So if it was legislated, they might have to do something, or, you know, but they're really busy trying to not go out of business. On the other hand, that's an opportunity, because if they start putting out, you know, a strategy that, you know, everybody is treated equally, and you can put in DCFC chargers, it says Ford on the front and all this kind of stuff. That's a real commercial opportunity, just like with Tesla. If people want to use Tesla chargers, they have to have a Tesla app on their phone, which is kind of a commercial and stuff like that. So I was undecided with your question, just because I could see both sides of it. So just a little more feedback for you.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, I don't know if it's me expressing a little taste of Stockholm syndrome, where you start feeling sorry for big OEM companies who have not been acting in our best interest for decades, or what. But, you know, it's I then roll back to, okay, me as a citizen taxpayer, why should, you know, I have to fund the backbone that supports the sales of their cars? That's kind of how it is. And then people say, well, you know, it'll ruin them. And I go, well, okay, if there was no other example out there, I'd say, yeah, you're entirely right. It makes sense. But it doesn't, because a company who was, you know, in great danger of dying at least 3 different times, you know, in the last decade, they managed to push the biggest, you know, infrastructure out there for DCFC anywhere. And I'm going, okay, something does not add up here, right? Tesla still doesn't have the revenue that the big 2.5, again, Chrysler Dodge doesn't really exist anymore. It's a French company, Stellantis, but, you know, that they've had for decades. So yeah, that's kind of why I think the kind of why I wanted to ask the question and get people's feeling on it. Norman.
Yes, so I think the role of government, I believe less government is good government. So I think the role of government might best be confined to standardization for charging procedures and methods of payment for charging.
Good point. You know, I'll only counter that with one thing, in that how government generally works in the North American capitalist context is that government goes out and it takes new things, throws money at it, de-risks it, and then turns it over to business to run. Our entire rail network was built that way. Entire airport system we have is built that way.
A railway wasn't built that way. A railroad was built by private companies that went bankrupt and were taken over by the government and rescued, and then privatized again afterwards.
Exactly.
Took a long time to do that, but that's very different.
But that's, you know, that's kind of how we've done things. It's that the government gets in and makes it safe and profitable for business. per se. And all we're doing here is we're at the early side of things, and we're kind of, we don't necessarily, and here's the thing, it's not about government making or government building their own DCFC systems. It's about letting business help pay for it so that they can sell their product more. Does that make sense, Norman?
Norman, you're muted.
Yeah, not for long. You know, governments build highways and bridges. There's no good reason why they couldn't build charging stations.
Well, in fact, our Crown Corporation has. The thing is, it's about getting car companies to contribute towards that, or build their own. And that would be their choice based on their view of the economics of each one.
Again, the focus of government should be on standardization of charges and methods of payment.
Okay, fair enough.
If you go to the standardization of charges, the problem you have then is a lack of, you get a standard in and the standard gets out of date, and then you don't want to upgrade the standard with a new standard because it's too expensive to change that. They're going through that with, charging iPads, iPhones, and that kind of stuff. And Europe is mandated to get rid of the plethora of different charging mechanisms for electronic devices. They've moved all to the, the C standard for, what do you call the plug-in, USB-C as the new standard there. And it may be starting to come into North America as well. Whereas Apple's system, I don't know whether it's superior or not, but they're far more innovative than the other folks have been in coming up with the new ways and better ways of charging your things. So when you force them to follow one particular mode of charging and one particular connector, for example, right now I don't know if a CCS is more efficient or less efficient than a Tesla charger.
Less.
But everyone's moving towards a Tesla charger. Which, the Tesla charger is much easier to use when you plug in, everything's done for you. You don't have to fart around with connecting this, that, or the other thing. So it's much more sophisticated. So if we were to say everything has to use CCS, we're adopting a lesser standard. So that's the problem with creating the standards. And what generally you do is you say your standard has to meet this, that, and whatever criteria, and you come up with a way of doing it. And if the industry can agree to comment within that standard, for a period of decade or whatever it may be, then you can get some cooperation on that. But there's a negative aspect or a difficulty and a negative consequence sometimes to forcing people to a particular standard, which may be very quickly out of date.
Yeah, ChatAMO is a good example of that. It had some great things it could do, which weren't exploited, and it was very clunky. And it was also limited in how much you could get from it. So it had a very short operational life. Okay. Yeah. Anybody else got any other comments you want to make on that topic before I take us to another one?
Oh, I found something. Someone had a question on LeafSpy earlier. The name of the one that Motorized sells and that works with the LeafSpy app is called an LE Link 2 OBB2 dongle. So LE Link 2 is the name of the one you want to pick up, and that's the one that Motorized carries and will work with that dongle will work with the application.
Hey, thank you.
Welcome. You can probably find it online and buy it there too if you wish, but certainly Motorized has it, and it's worthwhile supporting them.
Right.
Is somebody typing with their microphone turned on?
Sounds like it.
Sounds like someone that knows how to type.
Or it could be somebody's got a mouse chewing on their cable.
A real mouse.
Okay, I'll take us on to the next one. A few years ago, VicEVA and some other owner groups around the province, excuse me, went to the provincial government and suggested that they turn around and legislate right to charge. And what that is people who live in multi-unit residential buildings, hereafter referred to as MURBs, should have the right to apply for and install electric vehicle charging at their parking spot. And the whole thing wasn't just okay, they have to do, they're allowed to do it. It opened the conversation. Stratas couldn't give an automatic no. Stratas would have to look at it from the standpoint of the economics, the safety, the capacity of the on-site charging, all that sort of stuff. But it was turning around to let Stratas know that they had to look at it seriously. And I'll give a little example of that. A lady I know in Burnaby, she still wants to get into an electric vehicle. Right at her parking spot, there's a 110 outlet. So she just wanted to get herself a used Leaf, her commuter car. We sat down, looked at her distance she was going to use, and all that sort of stuff. Looked at what the 110 outlet, the level 1 charger, would have provided, and came up with, it was going to cost her about $15 a month to use that car 6 days a week for all of her running around. Made a proposal saying, hey, go to your strata, say, here's the breakdown, here's what I think it'll cost. I'm gonna give you $20 a month, so that strata can say it's not losing money on the deal. And the strata came back and said, no, we're paying a lot of money for gas, why shouldn't you? So anyway, right to charge was kind of built around that sort of thinking. So a lot of the, like I said, a lot of the EV owner groups turned around to the government and said, yeah, you need to get onto that sort of thing. To date, that hasn't happened. I do know that the bureaucrats have been kicking this around and they're thinking about it. However, 5 years have passed and situations may be changing. Almost every municipality in the province, covering most of the population, already has municipal regulations that say if you're building a new MURB, you have to have charging built into that from day one. Because when we make a building, it stays in our stock for 50, 60, 70 years. Building one without it right now is just stupid. And it's a whole lot cheaper to do it when you're building putting the building together than to try and retrofit it afterwards. So we now have a dividing line. All the new stock that's being built will have EV charging going forward into the future. So people, when they go into these new buildings, they'll go, hey, this looks great. Oh, look, I can charge my EV. This is awesome. And then we have the legacy MURBs that don't have charging. And right now, individual stratas can sit there and say no. For whatever reason, either real, we can't afford to, we can't support it with our power setup, whatever. They're just saying no. So the thought is that going forward, as more and more EVs come onto the market, as more and more people buy EVs, that whole building stock is now going to start losing value. People will walk into it, say, hey, I like this place. I'd like to buy here. Where do I charge my EV? Well, you can't. Oh, okay, bye. So we have the problem here in that you don't want to have people's value in their homes go down. And you do want to give people the opportunity to move into EVs as quick as you can. So the thought is that there should be a requirement, and there are lots of requirements that are involved in the Clean BC plan. You know, every municipality has to account for all of their greenhouse gases, and they all have to come up with a plan on how they're going to retire those greenhouse gases going forward, right? And there are different gates for each thing. Right now, most municipalities, you will not be able to put in a diesel-fueled furnace. That's gone. And they're now paying to go out and have those retired early, which is why you're seeing a whole lot of money being thrown at heat pumps, right? Heat pumps are a lot more efficient, a lot cheaper to run. But back to the MURBs and EVs. Should there be a requirement that stratas, you know, make a plan, say in the next 3 or 4 years, to say how they're going to achieve getting all of their spots lined up for EV charging, and identifying to their municipalities and the provincial government where the bottlenecks are, where they're going to need help, either technical help or financial help, to get all of their spots lined up and be ready to charge by whatever year, 2030, 2035, whatever it is. Thoughts?
Glenn, I got 2 points. First is David Grove just joined the meeting, so everybody try to look busy. And the second one is this a particular BC thing? And the reason I ask is, from growing up in Saskatchewan and living in some pretty cold parts of Ontario for a while, every apartment block that has parking also has the charger or the plug-ins of the 110s for the winter time. So you can plug in your car, otherwise you can't start it in the morning.
And those are all 20 amp as well, I might add.
Okay. So there must be, it just struck me that one thing we've never looked at is there must be legislation in those places to require those things, that electrical outlets for charging for parking outside. And I'm wondering if that can be applied here.
I'm going to ask somebody from a cold, wintry province who might have some experience in this. Don?
We had them in the legislature. All around the horseshoe in front of the ledge, there were parking spots, and there were posts to charge and keep your not charge, but to keep your put in your in-car heater, your block heater, and plug it in. And once there were some British tourists that were there, and they were sitting out front of the ledge, and the lady said, "Isn't this thoughtful? They have a place for us to plug in our tea kettles." But anyway, to the best of my knowledge, there's no legislation requiring apartment blocks to put them in Manitoba or in Winnipeg in particular, but most apartment blocks have them.
Yeah.
Because it's basically a necessity of life.
Right.
And if you have a place that doesn't have them, the chances of you being able to rent it are much less than they are if you do have them.
Well,
Thanks,
but
Don.
in addition to a necessity, it's also like the right thing to do, because nobody would rent from apartment buildings that didn't have that ability to do that. And I'm wondering if maybe our approach needs to be, why aren't people in BC nicer to their neighbors?
I think social media has killed that one. Lynn, I saw your hand up first, and then I'm going to go over to Shelley.
So I live in a MURB. 9 days ago, we finally approved an EV infrastructure plan. I've been working on it for 1.5 years. It is a pain in the tushy tush tush to get it passed. And the main sticking point, as far as my fellow strata owners, and I'm on strata council, the main sticking point is money. Because it costs a lot of money to get the infrastructure put in. That's just the infrastructure. That's not the chargers. And there are going to be a lot of MURBs out there. Like I'm in a very nice MURB, So we finally convinced our people after we had 2 meetings. So it was not approved at the annual general meeting. We had a special general meeting. And it was finally approved. But there are going to be a lot of MURBs out there where the people just say, we cannot afford this. So I think that's going to be a major stumbling block, and to have people to try and get MURBs. Yes, the Strata Council can present it, but if you haven't got the money, it's not going to fly.
I have a quick question for you, and then I'm going to go to Shelley because she's got some good stuff here. Did you have a company helping you put together the package and costs and stuff?
Of course we did.
Okay.
We had Lee,
Okay. Good.
and he helped us right step by step by step by step. We're right in the, I just actually dropped the contract off at their place 2 days ago, and we're going to be starting doing it soon. But it's a tough slog.
Can I ask, and you don't have to tell us, what did it work out per owner?
It works out after the 50% rebate to be about $1,440 per owner. And that's not even getting the chargers in. That's just infrastructure.
So let's add another $500 for the chargers.
No, let's add another $1,500 for the chargers,
Okay.
because the rebate for chargers has now gone down to only 50%. It's no longer 75%.
Okay. So if we said $3,000 per unit, and you were able to tell them that the average Canadian is spending about that much in gasoline every year.
Oh, don't worry. I sent them those websites. I gave them examples.
Okay.
I spent
So,
hours doing this.
yeah. So it's the upfront money that scares people.
It's the upfront money, and as well, in a lot of MURBs, there are a lot of older owners, and the argument that I got time and time again was, look, I don't even drive anymore. Why do I want to support this to put it in? And we said, we have had comments from several real estate agents that it increases the value of your property. The answer I got back was, that's anecdotal reporting. That's not a study.
Okay. Fair enough. Thanks, Lynn. Shelley.
Microphone.
Yeah, unmute myself. I've also heard, just to add on to what Lynn was saying, also heard that MURBs can now apply for credits, carbon credits, where the MURB actually gets money from government for reducing their carbon footprint. And so that's, I think, a bit more of a game changer, because people will see that they're gaining money, but that's not, I think that's still in the process of being established. So, but it is a positive. It's definitely a positive, and something that can be argued for those who aren't in favor of this, because it's too costly upfront. The other thing is that I think people don't like freeloaders or the free riders. They're thinking that they're paying for something that they're never going to use, and it has to become sort of a hive issue where everybody in the community, the thing, feels like they're together in a family, and then they'll more or less come on board. But that's a difficult thing to do, to switch people from thinking individually to thinking as a hive or as a community. Yeah,
and
that's all I want
we
to say.
kept talking about future proofing our building in terms of the environment, in terms of new owners coming in, et cetera, et cetera. So we did talk about that. And regarding the credits that you talked about, these carbon credits, again, Lee at Edwards Electric, who's probably our Victoria, BC expert on these things, has said it's not a dollar for dollar thing. It's a process you have to go through, but yes, eventually there'll be some coming back to our strap.
Yeah, because yeah, because I mean, corporations are doing this right now with carbon credit and selling or buying carbon credits from someone else or some other company so that they can pollute. So yeah,
I'll
happening.
tell you on the backside, at the federal level, clean fuel standard about a year and a half ago was being set up, and the proposal was to introduce electricity as a clean fuel for obvious reasons. And part of it was also to be that at the point of sale, they would get the credits. And individual owners like us got muscled out entirely by the big companies. And like it was like, hey, don't pay attention to those guys. It's not dead. It's not dead. It's not well, but it's not dead. Okay, I think David, where is he?
Collins. Is that there?
David Collins, he had a question.
Yeah, I was gonna ask Lynn who Lee is, but she already said from Edwards Electric, so I got that
Okay.
covered, thanks.
Yeah, Lynn, maybe if you want to put together a proposal and do as a presentation to us at some point, think about it, get back to Jim. You know, he's always interested in these things. Any other good comments on that one?
How much is it, and then maybe Lee was able to fill you in on some of this, but how much of the change has taken place with the technology of how the chargers are set up? I recall reading something that Tesla now has, it puts in, it has a system where you have like half a dozen or more chargers hooked up to a common source, and the source is shared. So you don't have to have supply to each car individually. You do it to a group of cars, and those cars get charged according to a prearranged algorithm of priority. So you pull in, your car is empty, you get priority, or a car that's only got to have a 20% top up.
Okay,
So-
I'm not aware of that. With a MERB, part of the issue is those of you who are charging in your own homes, it's quite different. Within a MERB, you have to look at the total power output for your building. So you can't drain the power from the building because you're charging your car. So
Yes.
they need to be networked. So there's only some chargers that work. Like, for example, I have a Model 3 Tesla, but I can't hook up a Tesla charger to the EV infrastructure when it's put in. I have to use a different charger that's able to be networked with all the other EVs that are going to be in my MERB. So I'm not aware of the Tesla one, but I know that there are difficulties because of the electrical input and output in the buildings that you have in your MERB.
Yeah, and you might also check with what Tesla has if you're going to be putting up individual chargers, because I think their chargers are now only $500 or $600 each.
Yeah,
Where
but
the other one-
a Tesla doesn't work with a network system.
Well, actually, what Don was saying there is that Tesla does offer a networked charger now. I mean, but that's gonna be something like companies will buy to install.
Yeah.
The main point is so my house here, I've got a pair of 40 amp breakers to charge up my car. And as you know, most people only need 1 hour of charging every night to cover off all their things. So that 140 amp breaker, when shared, could probably share out 8 cars overnight easily. Right. So and that's the whole thing is to make those circuits work smarter, not bigger.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think you can buy a charger Tesla with a J1772 plug on it as well.
I do.
You have that, eh?
Well,
Okay.
yeah, because I the one charger you could buy back when I bought my Leaf was a Schrader.
Okay,
No, Schneider.
Schneider, yes.
It was a 1770 or Yeah, 1772. So I have to use my Tesla or J1772 to Tesla adapter every time I charge.
Mhm.
When it dies, I'll buy a Tesla one, but you know, it works. What the hey? If you have a smart car, you can take a dumb charger. You got a dumb car, you need a smart charger.
Yeah. And further to add to the point about the carbon credits, I mean, that's basically the business model of Sun Country, which has free charges to various places, but they get paid by the oil company. Shell, I think, is the biggest purchaser of carbon credits from them, but they get paid every time you plug in. And I think they get paid more than the cost of electricity.
Oh,
Yeah, the
That's
number
true.
I've heard tossed around by a pretty good source is 42 cents a kilowatt hour,
Really? Wow. And
which
it costs.
means your average EV is about $800 a year to whoever is collecting those credits.
Mhm.
I'm sure this will all sort out, Lynn. I'd love to hear.
yeah,
about
I'm
it.
sure it will. We're gonna apply for it once we
Good for you.
drag ourselves to that part of the process.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I would love to hear about this at length if you're up for it. I'm going to suggest a break, and then we can come back, and hopefully by that time, Julian will join us, and we'll kick off on a little bit of we have a few topics to roll through, or maybe this would be a good time for David to talk to us.
David Grove.
Do we have a counselor's announcement here coming up?
If you'd like, I've got a Scarlet Runner bean pod just came in from outside. And if you own a Tesla, your beans produce a lot better. Of course, that's a complete lie, but there's an EV.
Sounds like a
club meeting about
politician to me.
So you sound like Pierre Polyev.
It's
Oh, God.
it's an electric car. It's not the Vancouver Island Gardeners Association, I know. But I'm always fascinated by this. Anyway, I'd like 5 little pods, beans in a pod sharing
It's
the
cute.
common energy source.
Yay.
That's the tie-in. Thanks,
Yeah.
Shelley.
Like it.
I was-
Like it very much.
Hey, I wanted to ask Lynn another question about her experiences there, if I can squeeze in a question before we break. You talked about networking. Does that mean that the MERBs are going to have an ongoing monthly cost? Yes? Okay.
Yes, it does. Yeah. And we're in the midst of negotiating with TELUS. You see, I'm in a 30-year-old MERB.
Okay.
The newer ones often have to have internet connectivity with their fire suppression service and this kind of thing. And they hook their EVs in through that. So Jim at Harrowview is the one that I just got tremendous help from in setting it up. And I think
Harrowview?
they already have an internet service that's throughout their building. My building doesn't have that, and we are going to have to put in internet service. We've got 5 buildings that we have to service, and we're going to have to put in internet service so that our chargers can be networked, so that we're not taking too much of a draw from the building.
So you're going to have a monthly charge for the internet service, and you're going to have a monthly
Yes.
charge for the networking service.
Yes.
So there's 2 monthly charges there.
Yes.
Okay.
Why? Very complicated.
Yeah, MERBs are, being in your individual home is so much easier.
Yeah, my MERB is 15 years old.
Yeah.
Right after I bought my EV in January, I emailed the property manager and asked what the policy was. And I was put on the EV charging subcommittee.
Yes. Yeah.
There's getting to be lots of resources for MERBs and that policy stuff. So I think that's where the government should be doing something, is with those policies, that it's so difficult. A landlord or a what do you call it? Strata Council can just say no for no reason whatsoever.
Yeah,
Yeah, well.
You
same
know, one of the resources that I found quite helpful, they have a lot of information for MERBs, is the VicEVA, the Vancouver Island Strata Owners Association, VISOA.
Yeah,
And they have webinars on all sorts of stuff.
I've watched
And
all
so
their
they had-
videos so far.
Sorry?
I've watched all their videos so far.
Yeah, and they're very good on heat pumps and on EVs and on just about anything. They had a lot of good information for putting in the EV infrastructure.
that's a very good organization. It's done a lot of good. My old friend Harvey Williams was and when he was in his 80s and into almost his 90s, he was the troubleshooter guy that was a hotline. And he took phone calls day and night from frustrated condo residents. It was quite the challenge. Yeah. David, what kind of comments you're looking for council? Is this
Oh, anything I can take to juice up the conversation. The EV ready bylaw in Colwood right now means that the developer has to put a empty conduit from the electrical panel to just under the roof surface, so that it is, according to them, EV or solar ready. It has nothing to do with EV chargers. These are new homes, so they've got power, and again, they need to add that. There's a carbon resiliency plan process happening right now, Colwood. You can always go there and add your comments. Go to the website.
Carbon what?
Carbon resiliency plan. They're
Oh,
collecting
okay.
information still. I don't think it's written yet. I'm pretty sure they're still working on it.
Okay.
And any ideas that, you know, I'm running for council, and if I get in, I want to be able to take some of this and strengthen it. We don't have a lot of condos in Colwood that are old that need to be rebuilt, but there are some apartments. And the one that was built most recently near the bakery here was, we got two buildings, and each one has 2 level 2 chargers outdoors there. They don't have underground parking. So I talked to the builders and I tried to get them interested in solar and more EV chargers than that. And that's as far as they went. Well, I guess I'm supposed to be grateful for that much. They're rentals, and every parking spot could have one, I guess. But again, it's a challenge to get them to add anything. So yeah, it's got to do with policy, right? That's where you start, I guess, that I'm getting wind of that. Build the policy and enter and get this policy stuff into the OCP. If possible. The OCP in call is 240 pages. It pretty much contains everything. So everybody argues they're working on behalf of the OCP. Both, you know, complete opposite views of something.
Yeah.
The argument against homeowner warranty is that the penetration of this pipe for solar violates the homeowner's policy, the roof warranty. And of course, you talk to Shift or any of these solar installers and say, well, that's crazy because our warranty overrides or supersedes that. There's no concern, but it's amazing the argument. So there's one house in Colwood, they're down about 650 houses. We've got one house with solar panels on it. And
just one in all of Colwood? That can't be.
No, in the Royal Bay, sorry.
No, Royal Bay.
The new development, sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of the new.
Well, we should be doing
Anyway.
the same as California and making them mandatory in all new construction.
Yeah, but it ain't California, is it?
Oh, well, we tend to
Finally.
follow California in time.
Yeah. So,
Well, good luck in your run.
well, thanks.
Are you having fun with it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's a regular riot, man.
You're knocking
do
on
it.
lots of doors?
Yeah.
That's
A
what you
few
gotta
hundred,
do.
so-
You want to play one of your videos, Dave?
yeah. Go ahead and pick one, Jim. Fire it away. I think the Piggledy Wiggledy one's the best. We were up at Saanich Fair, Jim and I, and taking some short videos with the cows about not milking the system and about chickens about a good start to a food policy.
Oh, that sounds great.
The remuneration issue in Colwood is about an 85% increase this council passed 2 weeks ago. from 16,000 to 30,000 a year.
So that's
Uh,
why you're running.
That's an easy one to answer. Yes. So it's an easy one to oppose. So we have one, and I question the wisdom of the remuneration policy as Jim Pan to the pigs at the feed trough, and they're all busy snorting and eating at the moment. So,
What's your website?
oh, davidgrove.ca.
Okay.
So I just took a cross Canada tour. Speaking of charging, and the Tesla thing, I don't know. I keep coming back to this over the years, and I'd say it again just because I feel like I should say it. I don't understand. I really don't, because that trip, 11,000 kilometers from Victoria to Kitchener-Waterloo and back, and 1,200 kilometers while I was there. And it was seamless. Tesla's chargers were everywhere. They were all working. Once I had to wait 4 minutes for a charger. It was at a hotel in Revelstoke, and they're getting more stations added as time goes. I don't know. There was just absolutely no issues. Like I say, it was fast. It was worked out to 45 cents a kilowatt hour, which is more than fair in cost. It's getting 7 kilometers per kilowatt hour. I'm in a sporty car, you know, comparable to a BMW that uses premium gas. So I mean, it's cheap.
David, tell them about the late night charging in Ontario.
Oh, so halfway between Sault Ste. Marie and Thunder Bay is a place called, I think, White Falls.
Yes.
It's a greasy middle of the nowhere. Hi, Julian.
Hey, how are
Greasy, the middle of nowhere place. And we pulled into the Tesla station chargers, and there's a greasy store there. It's all closed. It's at 10 to 3 in the morning, and we're cannonballing on our way from Winnipeg to Kitchener. So it's the middle of the night, and we're just swapping every 2 hours back and forth. We're plugged in, you know, and there's no facilities open. The gas pumps, there's 2, they're closed. There's some maintenance sheds there. The railroad people building some stuff. It's all pretty beaten up, but there it is. And this car pulls through and slowly passes the 2 gas pumps, and then carries on. A few minutes later, we're almost ready to unplug, and he comes back into the parking lot and says, "Is there a gas station open near here that you know of?" And we're looking at the electric, and I'm holding the charger and going, "Well, no, I don't think there's anything open." So he groans, "Yeah, I should have bought a Tesla, an electric car." And so we leave a few kilometers down the road, further than he went, I guess. There's a gas station closed with 4 gas cars lined up with people sleeping in them. 2 of them, the lights were on and they were on their phones. And on the way back, past that site, going west, similar situation, there's a station with 5 owners, gas, in the middle of the night. We happened to be there at the same time. Same thing, 5 gas cars, people sleeping in them, waiting for the pumps to open at 7 in the morning. So they had a 4-hour sleep at least. And, I just sort of, there it was. I mean, what more do you want to say? And I don't need an attendant. I just go in and plug in. That Tesla doesn't care if it's the middle of the night. Well, there, that's that story. It was a lot of fun.
Was that White River?
Oh, White River, maybe.
Yeah. Well, we used to have a big sign up outside of it, coldest place in Canada, minus 71 degrees at such and such a date.
Maybe that's why it's white.
It is in winter.
Anyway, Julian's here. I'm sure he's got more interesting things to talk about than I do, but.
Oh, I don't know. Actually, interestingly, I just met some people for lunch up at Marydale Cider near Shawnigan Lake. And there's a couple of people I haven't met before. And pulled into the parking lot. There's a Mach-E and a Mini EV and a couple of Teslas. And the people that I met, she's got a Nissan Leaf. She has 4 paddle boards strapped to the top of it all the time. And the other people we sat down with were the owners of the Mini EV. And so it's ironic, like my party, who I did not have any clue these guys had EVs, and there they are. They're all driving EVs. But
nice.
The way it goes.
They'll
so what's happening,
satisfy your
everybody?
demand soon enough, and then what will you do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Did I miss much on MERB talk?
Oh yeah, MERB talk was
It was
excellent.
Sorry, I missed it. I'll go back and watch after.
No problem. Yeah, okay. So like what you and I, what we're going to talk about, we're going to talk about Ford, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
I'm pretty excited to see them doing what they do. You know, I've only read, everything that's in the media, but I think they're along the right track. And one thing that I thought was really interesting, Glenn, is that when Ford announced that their dealers were going to have to spend anywhere from 500 to 1.3 million or whatever it was, that is a drop in the bucket, because that's going to include not only the DC fast charging, but it's also going to include the tools, the equipment, and training for their staff. And they don't have to pay it up front. They got time. So to invest that much money, or for Ford to force their dealers to invest that much money, is no different than what they've done in the past. Like if you're a Mustang dealer and you wanted to be an SVT dealer, you'd have to pay 400 grand for extra advertising and extra this and extra that. Like if you want to be a Ford E dealer, it's not just the access to the inventory. That's going to be new branding and everything.
Yeah. What I'll for those who don't do this stuff all day every day, Ford just came out this week and said, hey, we're looking at our dealers, and and they've already kind of hived off into two different parts of the company, the legacy ICE company and the EV side. And that's how the corporate Ford is. Now, Ford does not own their dealerships. Their dealerships are all franchises. So the next communication with the franchises was, I think, over the next 4 months, 6 months, the dealerships have to decide if they want to sell EVs at all, number one. And if they don't, that's fine. And if they do decide they want to sell EVs, they either want to be able at a lower level, which is a $500,000 buy-in, or the elite level, and which is the north of $1 million side of things. And it's really, we saw GM do this about a year and a half ago with the Cadillac dealers, and some of them said, no, it's okay, we're going to stay with ICE cars and die with our customers. And some said they were okay, we want to go EV. So this is Ford kind of going down that same road, a little bit smarter. I'd agree, Julian.
I think that okay, so first of all, it depends where the dealer is. Like if you're on the West Coast or the far East Coast, I think any Ford dealer, if they want to survive, they're going to have to go EV. It's no problem. Because whether you're selling sports cars, like e-transit vans, or anything in the lineup, you're going to have to offer EV if you're in the population centers. Now, if you talk to a Ford dealer in Wyoming or Arkansas, they're going to have no interest in EVs whatsoever, like absolutely none for a long time to come. But yeah, up and down the East and West Coast of the country, I think any dealer who doesn't adopt EVs and pay the price right now is going to be in for some big hurt down the line.
Yeah, no, agreed.
But the pricing is not out of line. I mean, DC fast chargers are 100 to 200 grand a piece, depending on what flavor you go with. And Ford's probably going to have their own branded product because they want their own branded charging network, and they're just going to make the dealers pay for it.
Yeah, and I wonder if they're going to have stipulations too, as in, if you put them in, are they going to be 24/7 accessible? Instead of like a lot of the Nissan dealerships when they first put in their level 2s, it was hidden behind a fence.
Yeah.
Actually, GM did a lot of that as well.
Mm-hmm.
What?
Yeah, it's kind of funny.
Only want us to come in during business hours? What?
Yeah, so Ford, if you're a tier 2 dealer or the elite dealer or whatever it's called, you have to have at least one 24/7 public-facing accessible DC fast charge station.
Right on.
Yeah, because they know that in some communities, if there isn't already a good network available, they want to make sure that Ford E customers can just go DC fast charge at the dealer. Like for sure, you have a place. If you bought your car here, you can charge here.
Yeah, that is great. The new leadership at Ford really seems to have woken up and can smell the coffee.
Well, I think they know who their base is, and if they know they can build a good product around the blue oval, they'll get to keep their base and sell EVs and continue into the future. I think they're on the right track. I think it's great.
Yeah. So that's the good. Do you want to talk about the ugly?
Which part of the ugly?
Well, as we've already kind of discussed, there are two parts to Ford. There's corporate Ford, the people who actually make the vehicles, and then offer those to the dealerships, who then buy them, bring them onto the lot, and then have to sell them. And sorry about that. And and then and then there are the dealers who then turn around and get the car ready for you. They get it all cleaned up when it comes off the truck and make it
And
all
add
pretty
20
for
grand.
you, and add 20 grand in dealer markup.
That's not going to fly.
Yeah, so there's one I think it was Nanaimo, the most recent one that hit the news, that they decided to get their Ford F-150 Lightning. They're already going to pay over 100 grand for this thing, and then and then they signed the papers and went off. Okay, great, but of course the dealer didn't have that as part of their 2022 allotment. So when their 2022 allotment was sold out, they said, "Oh, okay, well we're just gonna move you to the 2023 allotment, and that'll be another 11 grand."
Yeah, that's not good. I think what some of these manufacturers and dealerships don't realize is that when they're competing with Tesla with a fixed price model, they look stupid when they add extra fees. Like, it makes them look bad, and they just don't understand that. Like, I think you have to think about selling cars as the big picture thing. You can't just sell them one at a time. You got to build a customer base and build trust. And jacking up extra prices is not going to make anybody love you or your product. There's going to be animosity, and you're going to lose the.
But
Yeah.
Tesla's been jacking their prices up too, have they not?
Well,
That's-
no, it's the same price for everybody. Like,
Yeah,
if
it's the same
all of
price,
us
but
order,
they've jacked up their universal prices, if you wish, by about $5,000-6,000 so far this spring.
well,
Just
yeah,
now.
they've done that several times, but everybody pays the same. So if
Yeah.
500 people order cars today, everybody today pays the same price. The
Right.
grocery store jacks up the price of milk and bread as well, but that's not the grocery store's issue. That's just a supply and demand thing. But it doesn't make sense for Ford to add, or Toyota. Toyota's done it too. RAV4 Primes. The U.S. dealers have put $40,000 additional markup on RAV4 Primes in California.
Are you serious?
$40,000 on top of MSRP,
Who would
because
buy
they
that?
know that some people will pay it.
That's
So
right.
that's different than rising, or that's different than doing a price increase because your cost of goods have gone up. It's not
Yeah,
the same.
the grocery store isn't raising the price between the time you put that loaf of bread in your basket until you get to checkout.
Yeah, and they don't say, I know it's $3.29 on the shelf, but because we have it in stock, it's going to be $4.29.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Tesla doesn't do that, but Ford and GM's not doing it because nobody's buying bolts. But yeah, Ford has, some Ford dealers have done it, and it's happened a lot in the past. Like, this is not a new thing to EV. That's happened with desirable low production supply constrained vehicles for tens of decades. Like, it's always happened, but it's a bad thing. It erodes consumer confidence.
Yeah, there's even the case where a contract was signed, money was put towards the vehicle. Within a week of the vehicle being picked up, the dealer then turned to the person with the contract and said, "Yeah, it's no longer available." Yeah, well, what do you mean? Well, yeah, no, we've sold it. Somebody walked into the dealership with a hockey sock of money and said, "I want that truck," and they got it.
Yeah, that's just greed.
Yep. And this is, why the OEM dealership model is, well, this is evidence of how it's breaking down and why it's going away.
Yeah, I think the regular dealership model is unsustainable. Well, it just needs change, right? It just needs to mature and grow with the times.
Yeah, totally.
We'll get there.
So that's Ford, the good, the ugly. I don't think there's any real bad per se, but it was a great way to introduce the topic.
Yeah. No, I think Ford's on the right track. I think they have made big investments. I know they're spending a lot of money on battery plants, which is kind of a big deal. And yeah, that's like super exciting. I get a lot of people asking me, hey, how come these guys can't produce? And this just goes for every manufacturer other than Tesla. How come they can't produce electric vehicles. You know, is it the chip shortage? And it's like, no, it's not the chip shortage. If you're good at producing vehicles, and Ford is very good at producing vehicles, so is GM and so is Toyota. They know how to build a lot of cars in a short amount of time. And the supply constraints are easing up to a degree that it's like there aren't a lot of supply constraints apart from batteries. But if you want to build batteries, you need a lot of raw materials. And these raw materials, you can't just turn on a tap and have this stuff show up on your doorstep. You know, if you want batteries next year, you need to have started planning for the battery materials and the manufacturing and distribution like 5 years ago. And Musk was really clear. He said, listen, second place is going to need a telescope to see us. And he's right. But they got the supply chain set up a long, long time ago when prices were still cheap. And they did a great job. And hold on, I got a call. I got a decline here. I don't even know how to do that.
Yeah,
Send to voicemail. Perfect.
Yeah, they started a decade ago, and they're now at the point where they're actually able to divert some batteries off into large battery storage. They're mega packs.
Oh, yeah, it's insane. Their battery production is massive. And, it's so strange. Musk has been really clear, like even in Battery Day, he said, listen, if you're a nickel producer, we need more nickel. And now he's recently said, listen, if you want to print money, get into lithium refining, lithium carbonate. We need it now. It's a license to print money. And the market's just not responding fast enough. And the only person who's accurately predicted the exponential growth of EV adoption is Elon Musk. Nobody else has actually taken it seriously. So here we are.
But
I think
there's lots of lithium. There's lots of lithium here in North America. But all the refining is happening in Asia.
Yeah. So how much does that cost to dig the ore out of the ground, refine it somewhat locally, and then ship it somewhere else to be purified, and then bring it back? Yep. It's a lot of transport. It's a lot of greenhouse gas emissions. It's a lot of energy. It's a lot of time and delay. So I'd like to see. I've had people ask. If okay, here's an interesting conundrum. Rebates are great, but a lot of cars are too expensive to qualify for rebates. So what is the government of Canada supposed to do to spur EV adoption? It's like if you offer rebates to people and they can't take advantage of the rebates because the cars aren't available in any meaningful numbers, would the money be better spent investing in local technology and industry so we could build more production or have more production here in Canada? I think it would be. And there's tons of mining operations in Quebec and Ontario that have all the materials you need for battery production. It's not super profitable yet because they're not set up. They're a ways away from volume production. And I think government money, like Natural Resources can, should be pouring funds into Canadian technology and Canadian engineering and Canadian manufacturing to bring EV production home. This is just my 2 bits on where, they would make a more meaningful impact than putting rebates on new cars.
Julian for president.
No.
And it would also reduce the cost.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And provide jobs. Like rebates on new EVs does not bring jobs to Canada. We need to produce materials and products in Canada. We did really well with that in the past. Glenn, I think you were talking about the Good War, the book.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was talking about how Canada was amazingly good at switching into a wartime economy during World War II. I didn't like the book, but the message was kind of good. But it's like, yeah, Canada used to be a manufacturing hub. Canada was amazing. And it's like, what do we build here now? Not EVs, but we should be. I think it's coming.
Yeah.
We've lost much of our whole manufacturing capacity. And I mean, we were in large measure a branch plant economy, and people had to build plants here to sell stuff in Canada. No longer have to do that. So we just are happy to buy whoever will supply it to us cheapest. And there's very little interest in developing stuff within this country anymore, which is a sad reflection on our future, I think.
Well, I think it's going to have to we're going to have to do a little turnaround there. If you look at how badly the automotive industry was hit when Russia invaded Ukraine, there's a whole bunch of manufacturing for electrical goods that existed in Ukraine and Russia, all of which came to a grinding halt, which slowed down the production of automotive and other electrical related stuff all over the world because they couldn't get the parts. So it's like, why are we outsourcing everything? It's not a good idea. Bring it back to Canada.
Yeah. Well, what about Biden's new deal? I thought that was a positive for the EV industry in Canada.
It is. It's a big win, and it will bring manufacturing back home onto North American soil. So I think that's a huge, huge win. I think it's excellent. Tesla is going to be the biggest winner, and they don't need the money, but they're going to win by default because they have battery manufacturing here, and they can move manufacturing capacity from one continent to another to wherever the tax incentives are the best. So it is a win, though, for sure. Ford and GM are both building massive battery capacity in North America, which is great. Although I don't really understand what GM is doing and how many they're going to sell, because they've got this Ultium battery, which is really just a pouch. It's like the oldest tech battery out there. I can't imagine building an entire new line of EVs using the oldest tech out there.
And it's still an LG Chem, or sorry, LG has a new name now to get away from the LG Chem stink of burning up the Bolt. But yeah, it's still an LG Chem product. It's nothing to do with GM, really. It's still,
I think it's a shiny logo and a name.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're doing for production, but whatever, they'll figure it out eventually, or they'll die. Those are the two options. So
Musk was talking years ago that 100 gigafactories just to make batteries and asking people to build them.
Mhm.
They pillory him all the time, and yet he's got this advice that no one follows then.
And just to make clear to everybody that we're not this is not a Tesla a Tesla only group or organization, but you can definitely identify when somebody's doing something right. Hey, we're not just Tesla, but if you do what they're doing, which is kind of what Ford's been, leaning forward into, bringing battery manufacturing back in-house, trying to get control of all the manufacturing to vertically integrate so that they can retain the money instead of having it go out to somebody else, in a cost plus project, and trying to pare down their dealership,
Let's see if their board fires Finley.
Yeah, well, and if they do, then that they've decided to have a murder suicide cult going.
He and Dice can open their own car EV company.
I kind of wonder what's going to go on with Volkswagen. I mean, Diest was propelling Volkswagen into the future, and the current stockholders might not have appreciated quarter by quarter earnings by investing so much of their capital into new factories and new equipment and new. Like, it takes a while to pay off, but that is the long-term benefit, is that you're going to sell a lot of EVs in the future. I don't know what's going to happen with Volkswagen, considering they're one of the like Volkswagen Auto Group is massive. I mean, they're a ginormous company, and to see their electrification leader get sacked right now was, in my opinion, the worst thing they could possibly have done. And I feel as though that might really seriously compromise their growth.
I'll just hop in quickly here, and then I'm going to turn over to Shelley because she's been waiting patiently for the question. And that the guy who came in to replace Diest is almost repeating everything that Diest was saying.
Personality thing.
Interesting.
So it's going to be interesting over at the big old VW meetings.
Yeah. Maybe a personality issue or something like that. Who knows? I did hear recently that Nissan is dropping the Leaf after next year's model.
It's true.
Any comments about Nissan? And I mean, they're also changing in the newer Leaf, the 2023, the charging connector.
They're going over to see. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I think
why do that and then drop it? Like, anyway.
Well, EPS is probably a cost thing. A CHAdeMO adapter or a CHAdeMO plug is about $800 at the factory level. It's very expensive compared to a CCS. So if you're trying to build extra margin into a car, it's just cost less to do a CCS car than it does to do a CHAdeMO car.
Yeah. Well, what's the reason for the Leaf being dropped?
It's not what people want. The Leaf is a 10-year-old design. And it was a ground up car. The Leaf hasn't changed. Like they changed a little bit of skin on the outside of the car. It's the same car though. That car was designed in 2008. The design was really finished by 2010, and production in Japan started in 2010. North America, France and the UK got it in 2011. So like this is an old car. This is a 2008 designed car. So I mean, they could make a new version of the Leaf and pour a bunch of money into it, but there's so much technology and manufacturing stuff has changed. It just kind of makes more sense to start from scratch. People want bigger
Really?
batteries.
I
Oh,
don't
yeah.
think so. I think they're making a big mistake in that the Leaf is the only name that Nissan has that has any links to electric, and they should be able to, in 10 years, they should have been able to develop a totally new model and still call it a Leaf. I mean, Ford doesn't change the name of the F-150 for 150 years. You know, you don't throw away a good badge, and it's just another stupid
Yeah.
decision by Nissan.
Well, do you know what
I
Leaf
agree.
is for?
Pardon me?
What do you know what the Leaf acronym stands for?
No, I don't.
Well, it's
Leave it
leading,
out.
environmentally friendly, affordable family car. That's what Leaf stands for. Okay. So maybe they don't want to be affordable, and maybe they don't want to be a family car. And I know
Oh,
they're environmentally friendly, but like that kind of shoehorns them into one specific thing. It's just
Well,
a
they're
little.
not leading either.
What's that?
Yeah, they're not leading either.
not now.
No. So the thing is, yeah, I'm sure the Leaf will come back at some point. They'll probably have Leaf 2.0 or something like that at some point. But at the end of the day, the whole world looks at the Leaf as that really cute little car that was a perfect little starter. The Leaf was everybody's first EV. Glenn, your first car was a Leaf. Jim and Sherry, first car was a Leaf.
Sound like
My
that.
first EV was a Leaf. Dave, your first EV was a Leaf. Everybody's
still
first
have it.
EV was a Leaf.
That me?
It's like, yeah, like, so, and yes, they were awesome, but did you, okay, so if you, let me wrap this up. Okay, so somebody came into the Nissan dealer 20 years ago, okay, and they have some old beater and they're in for an oil change and they get tires and all that stuff, and the dealer says, you know what, you're in here, I see you coming in with this old broken down car all the time, why don't you trade it in on something new? We've got this Nissan Stanza or Nissan Sentra or Nissan Altima or whatever. And the consumer could keep going back every 3, 4, 5 years and get a bigger car. And all of a sudden they're married and they're going to have kids and they need a minivan. They could cycle the customers from one little car up to the next car. And that's how their dealership model worked. Nissan had a big problem when the Leaf came out because in 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015, the consumer would buy the car. They'd come in, they wouldn't buy any tires. They wouldn't buy, like, they get windshield washer fluid filled. Okay. So the dealership now hates the Leaf because they
Oil
don't make any
changes.
money.
They don't.
Yeah, well, every 7 years, it does hold 730 cc's of oil. Okay, so
Every quarter they'd remind you to come in for their free oil change.
Yeah, exactly, free, right? So, but here's the catch: if an automotive manufacturer wants to get repeat customers, they need to have something to step up into. If you bought a Tesla Model 3, chances are more than likely you're going to trade it up for a Y, and if you bought a Y, chances are likely you're going to trade it up for a Cybertruck. Okay. So not that everybody's going to buy a Cybertruck, but it's just the way things go. So what do you think's happened to Nissan during the last 10 years, 11 years? Well, they've been selling these Leafs. They don't have anything for their customers. So if they made a new Leaf and invested all this time and money to build a new version of the Leaf, people who had a Leaf before, would they buy another Leaf when there's a million other EVs on the road that are like totally cool and modern and neat? No, they're not going to buy another Leaf because the Leaf was this old thing that was great, but
Yeah,
you know,
but they can transition that into a new thing. It's a new, whatever it calls, Aria or whatever they call it. Is that just
Aria.
a
Yeah.
Leaf station? Is that just a Leaf station wagon? Because they're continuing that, I presume.
no, it's totally different. The Aria shares nothing with the Leaf.
Okay,
No, it's a totally different ground up vehicle.
so it's so it's their new EV for the brand.
Yeah, listen, to be honest, if any manufacturer wants to make money in the EV space, they can't build things the way the Leaf was built. The Leaf was built exactly the same way an old gas car was built.
Yeah.
That's old tech and it's not
Yeah.
profitable, and you can't build that kind of car moving forward.
Yeah.
You're going to go broke.
Yeah, well, I'm not saying build the Leaf. I just say the Leaf name itself is worth something. It's probably worth more than Nissan is as far as in relation to electric cars. And to throw away the name, I think is a mistake. They should be building a totally new model, advanced, EV, up-to-date EV, and calling it the new Leaf.
They could call it the Leaf Plus.
Yeah.
They have.
Oh, they already have that.
Yeah.
They've done
One
that.
thing is I always have conversations with people about my Leaf and about electric cars. The biggest problem that I find people say is preventing them from buying is price. And the Leaf was one of the most affordable ones. I mean, Tesla was way out of my range, and even for used. And you know, these people are complaining about the cost of it, and they need a small, like a smaller cost and a basic model. And I grieve the time when it's going.
It'll be replaced by Tesla's new $25,000 Tesla.
When is that?
More myth than anything else. Oh, it's just
Yeah,
another
big time.
Elon future dreams.
Yeah, big time.
Probably made in China and be here within 4 years.
And we don't have time to, you know, have people, cobble together all their money to buy electric cars. Like it'll take people 10, 15, 20 years to do that.
Well,
Like,
there's
people
another
are saying
angle
that
that
to
you
me.
can, yeah, Shelley, there's another angle that you can look at, which might not be totally apparent up front. And that is that a lot of people are spending a huge amount of money on fuel. Like it's kind of getting ridiculous at this point. And so so here's a scenario that you may or may not have considered. Let's say you've got a gas, I don't know, some generic, you've got GMC Terrain, I don't know, pick your car, and it's paid for and it's not really worth a whole lot, but it costs you say $400 a week in fuel because you're using it for work. And it's like, that gets to be really, really expensive. We got a lot of skip the dishes drivers, for example, who are spending, I'm serious, $1,500 a month in fuel. So at that point, they think they can't afford a Tesla because they're driving a $5,000 car. And when they look at a $70,000 car, they think, I am not the kind of person who drives a $70,000 car. But if you take the value of that $70,000 car, which cost $7 to fill at home, and then you look at the monthly payment on that car, which is say $800 a month, and then you compare that with the $1,600 a month they're spending on fuel because they're using it for commercial service, all of a sudden the $70,000 car is cheaper to run and own than the $5,000 car. But you have to look at the big picture and you have to consider the finances and the total value of the vehicle and the total cost of operating. It's not like people are going to save $60,000 and then go buy a car, because you can't save money if you're spending it all on gas. Now, if you're driving a car that's super cheap to run, then the savings aren't going to be so big. Or if you don't drive much and you ride your bicycle to work and back most days, well, then you don't have a fuel savings chipping away at your earnings. So the finances look much, much different. Yeah. But there are a lot of people who will buy expensive EVs because those expensive EVs are less costly than the gas. Mm-hmm. It's not like how expensive is the EV. It's really how expensive is the EV in the hands of its owner when compared to a gas alternative.
Right. Yeah. And thank you for, explaining that. I have looked into that and tried to explain that to them too, but what really smacks in their face and all they see really is that $70,000 that they're going to have to like, and even in installments or monthly payments and stuff, they're still going, and
it's
it doesn't get in to their brains.
This is where the banks need to be able to go back, because when a bank turns around and says, can we afford to give you the money for this or that or whatever, they need to look at that gas vehicle and go, can you really afford this whole purchase based on the amount of money you're going to be spending on gas? Right?
Yeah, it's a bit of a trap too for low income families and whatnot. It's really not cool actually that EVs are as expensive as they are. I mean, hey, I wish they were cheaper. And the more EVs are produced, the lower the cost will get over time. But right now, cost is definitely a barrier. And like the PST savings on the used stuff is a big deal. It's really cool, and it does make these cars more accessible. But simultaneously, when British Columbia saw the PST exemption come into place, the demand for EVs skyrocketed, and the value of all used EVs which qualify for the tax rebate have also skyrocketed. So yeah, sure, they're PST exempt, but since February of this year, they've gone up in value by 20%. So there's no actual savings there for low income people who are really just trying to get a basic EV. You're muted, Shelley.
I just said yes, and that's a problem. If we want to get to a place where we're, living below 2 degrees Celsius average increase in temperature, global temperature, we have to move a lot faster, and this isn't helping.
Well, that comes back to production. We need to increase production. And in order to increase production, we need to bring production home.
Yeah.
Because if you cut down on the cost, if you cut down on all the waste and the transport and the processing and refining, and like Elon Musk said, if you stop moving atoms around the world 7 times before they go into their final destination, and you actually build them closer to where they're going to get used and operated, then it's going to reduce the cost. If you can reduce the cost, it makes things more affordable. So I think, we kind of need, like, to address the issue, we need to bring production back closer to where these vehicles are going to get used. And it's happening. Like, there's a lot of European car manufacturers are building factories in North America right now, which is going to help a lot. So we're getting there slowly, but it's not happening fast enough.
All right.
That's-
We were going to talk a little bit about Korean manufacturers, but I think we're over time now, and we'll just shorten that by going, yay, Korea. This has been a really good afternoon, considering we hadn't really scheduled anything formal. Oh, and one more thing, Shelley.
One thing, I am now on 2 lists of getting a good used battery in like an upgrade to a 40 kilowatt battery for my car.
Your Leaf, yeah.
For my Leaf. There've been a couple of what do you call them? Where they bid for the battery
Auctions.
and that's auctions, right? Thanks. But they bid too low, so I haven't gotten it.
Tom Sawyer?
Yeah, Tom is on it, and also Scott Waddell.
Got it, Precision. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so out of New Zealand, Enhanced EVs has a liquid cooled battery for the Leaf. They're in production now, but they're only selling them in New Zealand.
Right.
That'll be the one to go for.
And is that what size is that? What kilowatt hour is that?
I think they're like 48 or something like that.
Oh,
I don't know.
right. Yeah, Tom was
That'd be
talking
awesome.
to me about that.
That's perfect.
Yeah,
But,
I want one of those.
So there has to be some kind of trade deal between New Zealand and Canadian manufacturers, or
Production.
something production before that can come to Canada. Or could I buy one in New Zealand? No, I don't think
Well, they're not producing any for export right now.
Okay.
They've got such a like the Leaf was really, really popular in New Zealand when it came out in 2011. So there's a ton of them on the road there. Similar climate to here, so they last pretty well. The cars don't rust out or anything. So there are tens of thousands of old Leafs on the roads of New Zealand that will be due for battery replacement in the next 2-3 years. Because those original batteries, they just weren't that good. Like they were okay, but any Leaf owner would probably still love to have the car just with more range and a modern battery.
Well, that's my
So if you can,
goal.
a lot of people are in the same boat, but I bet if you wait 3 years, we'll have those here. I don't know if your battery will hold out that far, but
Well,
you can get
it's-
a 40.
It's still at 88%,
Oh, well, that's pretty good.
and that's end of 7 years.
Yeah, that's
super.
pretty healthy. That exceeds the manufacturer's specs for that battery.
I'm about the same with mine and have no desire to change it.
Yeah,
I
I
recommend
just,
it's a city car.
yeah. See, I want to go to Ontario where my family is to visit.
The car was built to take the average Tokyo family, run them around for a week, and charge on the weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah, my
Mhm.
Leaf just dropped down to 11 bars after 7 years and 96,000 kilometers.
Right
Do
on.
you want to sell it?
No,
Too bad.
Everybody in the room here is just shaking their heads. Boy, that Julian's quite a salesman.
Yeah.
No, I'm the purchaser. I don't sell. I
Hey,
just buy. Although I would
Julian.
like my staff to sell some more cars, but I had an interesting conversation sitting at the table with this lady who bought the Mini. She's like, I had no idea you could actually buy an electric car in Victoria, a used one. She had no clue. And she went to the Hyundai dealer and she sat down and she enjoyed driving around in the Kona, but she didn't like the big camera thing, like where the rear view mirror attaches to the windshield. She's blind in one eye. and she had a real vision problem in the Kona. And she talked to the salesperson. The salesperson basically told her all new cars are like that. It's the law. It's for safety. It's just the way it is. So then she left there. She didn't like the experience. So she went down to BMW, and the guy paired the phone for her and set up the Bluetooth and got the seat set up. And she drove it around and just fell in love and absolutely loved it. But here's a customer who had no clue that you could buy used EV in town. No clue about the tax credit either. So it's like,
Oh my God.
And
Oh, dear.
Victoria
That's your
Hyundai
average-
still
That's your average
doing,
Canadian.
Victoria Hyundai still doing that not good stuff? I thought they changed management.
well, yeah, it's the Cott Auto Group there. I don't know. I've spoken with a few of their previous employees, one of whom came to work for me. I don't know. I don't think they leave a perfect impression on their customers, but I don't think anybody does. So can't really say anything.
Okay.
I read something a while ago that there is someone on the island now doing battery replacements. Is that a guy up in Duncan or?
Well, there's a few people doing it. There's a guy out in Sydney named Kelly Turberfield that's done some for me. And there's another guy named Tom Sawyer, who most of you are familiar with, and he's done some. In fact, I sold a dead smart car to Fiat Victoria. They couldn't fix it. So Tom Sawyer bought it from them, took the battery out, charged up all the cells individually, put it back together and sold it. And it worked fine. So Tom is the go-to get her done kind of EV service guy.
And where's he?
Probably on his couch.
Or in his car.
Yeah, I don't
Well,
know. If you send me an email, I'll give you his phone number. But he
Okay.
does EV servicing, and I'm about to give him a Fiat 500 that's dead, and I'm sure he'll revive that too. So
Okay. Good.
we're getting there. Rand Automotive is starting to do a lot of EV service as well. They know that's a big upcoming market. So
All good stuff.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks, Glenn. I just wanted to thank you for the good meeting here. I got here late, I know, but nicely done.
yeah.
Really appreciate it.
No.
yeah, I
people
appreciate you
were,
guys having a meeting so I can see all your smiling faces and catch up on Ford and other fun stuff. And Shelley, I sympathize with your battery envy, and someday you will have one.
She's
No,
our resident battery envy.
Yeah, and Pioneer Leaf driver.
Yeah,
Is it
you're an early
only gone
adopter.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was almost 3 years ago now that I tried to go cross Canada, but there wasn't a circuit then.
You're
And I
brave.
realized that it was just impossible for me. I mean, I could have tried it, but it was a
If
difficult
you have
time.
enough time, you can
Yep.
do it. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was expecting 10 days, but everything had to work out.
Yeah.
And that was also the end of the summer, where those two crazy young men were
Yeah.
shooting people and stuff, and they were in Manitoba, and I'm heading there like, no.
yeah, no, don't do that.
Anyway,
Yeah.
I do have Tom Sawyer's number. If you'd
Perfect.
like
I
it.
think and Eric, just send me an email. I just got a message that popped up on my phone, but I don't know how to get to that message, and I'm not super techie, and I have to jump on a motorcycle and go to Duncan now. So I have to go meet a Ukrainian person who's a new immigrant who wants to get into UX design, and my girlfriend is meeting with her for some coaching. So off we go.
Sheesh.
So the number is 778 700 8088. And that's Tom Sawyer.
Yeah, he's great, by the way.
Yeah, he's fabulous.
Very energetic. Holy.
He comes with a warning.
Yeah, really.
It's awesome.
He's harmless.
Good.
And he
No,
has
he's harmless,
tools.
but it's a warning. Like, holy smokes.
That's
Yeah.
not the guy. That's not the guy who charges over his car and replaced the battery in the old Leaf. He has a 2011 Leaf, and he's
Yeah.
replaced the battery, and he's over in
The black one.
at
Yeah.
where the Tesla station is, plugging into the free charges there for the. Yeah, is that the same
Yeah.
guy?
I think
That's the
so.
same guy.
Yeah.
Sounds like.
Okay.
I had breakfast with him this morning.
Okay.
To be honest, it's not Tom that does the work, it's Craig that does
Yeah,
the work.
he's got a mechanic.
He's got a trained mechanic.
Tom's the business guy, kind of thing.
Well, he's a salesman anyway.
Salesman,
in
right.
business.
Perfect. Got to start
Anyway.
somewhere.
Yeah. Good.
All
Okay.
right, I got to run. It's
Okay.
really nice to see everybody, and
Yeah,
hope to
you
catch
too.
up again
I gotta run
soon.
too.
Everybody,
Peace out.
Everybody.
take
Prime
care.
Minister.
All
Thanks,
the best.
Julian.
Julian,
you guys.
I've got to run too, so good luck on your run there, Dave. Get out knocking on doors. Saturday's a good time to be standing around malls as people come out and that sort of thing, so,
We don't have any malls in Colwood.
oh, well, there you go. Well, wherever they hang out. Restaurants, go to a restaurant where they're going into Saturday afternoon supper. Anyway,
Don't kiss any babies because that's creepy now.
yeah.
Yeah, good luck in the election. That's.
Thank you.
All the best. All
Yeah.
the best.
Thank you. We'll get the EVs going yet.
Yay.
Here we go.
Take care,
Bye now.
everyone.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Cheerio.
See you, Dawn.
Yeah, see you guys.
Bye, Shelley. Bye.